Okay, I'm Samantha Torres, and for the first question, which is the first part, my definition of ethics is reasoning that is based from logical ideas or concepts and knowing what is right or wrong. I believe this definition is straightforward and self-explanatory, which is why I feel this is the best definition for ethics. The three dimensions to ethics can be relatable to this definition by initially following an act that leads to the motive justifying that act, to the means in which the end is achieved by the action, and leading to the end, in other words, the outcome. For the second part of this question, the ethical perspective that can best be handled with the situation is the Kant deontological ethics, in which that means must justify the ends of the ethics. In the situation, Michael, knowing Phyllis has been having an affair with Roger, initially can prove the outcome of Daniel considering a divorce if Michael tells him the truth. Therefore, this is the intended outcome proven by the mean. For the third part of the question, moreover, and relating to the 4 C's, the ethical perspective Kant is determined with all 4 C's. Clarity states that the ethical perspective is able to answer the subject's moral question. In this situation, should Michael tell his good friend Daniel that his wife is having an affair? Coherence states whether various moral principles fit together in a reasonable way. The moral principles of Michael's situation are to stop allowing the affair happen and to let his friend know about it, and if he is the true friend, he should just tell him. Consistency is when being able to apply the ethical argument in multiple situations while continuing to follow its central claim. In actuality, if Michael was a so-called true friend to Daniel, he would be truthful to him under any circumstance or situation brought upon. Lastly, Michael's situation under the ethical perspective Kant has an ethical stance that can take into account in all aspects of one's life. As far as the second question, why is argument and humor important? I believe it's because comedy humanizes the subject of political argument, and it shows that leaders are human as well, and they are less authoritative figures. Comedy makes fun of leaders' personality perks. But what is reality? Fiction is more of a cover-up to reality, but in actuality, it is a reflection of it. We are constantly bombarded with the truth. The advantages would be citizens having fiction as reality. It allows to set a distance between ourselves and reality. Humor is more of a social understanding of real life, and it also helps confront issues we do not feel comfortable with. The disadvantage would be we cannot figure out what is or isn't the truth due to having fiction as reality. All in all, I would advise a candidate running for office to connect with its audience as much as possible, even if it takes humor to be relatable. It'll attract others to gain a vote to the political party itself. Second part of this question, late night talk shows on Comedy Central, such as The Daily Show or Saturday Night Live, is when humor is a legitimate tool for political argumentation. For the third part, advantages of humor. It helps confront issues we aren't comfortable with. Like previously said, comedy humanizes the subject. And it also decreases in distances between citizens and leaders. The fourth part, the disadvantage of humor. Reality is too real. Thomas Hobbes states in Superior Theory, we use humor to distinguish ourselves for those we feel inferior. We become overwhelmed with real images, and we then disassociate the true meaning of those images. So that concludes the second question. So the third question is about strategic maneuvering. There are 6 concepts within this. The first concept is change the subject when you know the opposing side is strong. Change it to so that you can win the argument, not the winning side. The second is modifying the relevant audience. The third is appeal to liberal and conservative presumptions. The fourth is reframing the argument, changing its perspective. The Fifth is using condensation symbols, such as representing ideology, things one can use to represent a larger belief system. And the sixth is employing the locus of irreparable. An example of strategic maneuvering can be when an argument is involved between two friends. One friend argues which is stronger than the other while stating that the other friend is not a true friend. While the second friend sees that, they argue, how can they be a true friend while they're constantly spending 100% of their time with their significant other? Black box argument is a type of appeal to authority, or in other words, one cannot challenge reasoning. An example of black box argument can be at work when a manager brings up an argument within its employees in which reasoning is no longer brought upon to challenge for the employees. The third part would be strategic maneuvering advantages. In one concept, by changing the subject, one can win the argument when in doubt. Moreover, topical choice and adaptation to the audience also involve change in favor of the opposing side that is losing. The disadvantage of strategic maneuvering can be when a group or individual believes they are winning an argument. Strategic maneuvering can be used to backfire. As far as for black box, an advantage can be in favor of authority. Disadvantages will be for individuals that have little authority. They cannot challenge the reasoning. That concludes the third question. And that's the fourth one. I chose the first prompt, which is arguing whether I should get a better grade or not. So the class that I use is for my Liberal Studies 100 class. My professor gave me a C for my essay that I recently turned in, and I clearly responded to the prompt, but apparently I did not address my response thoroughly. So in order to argue to get a better grade, I should first and foremost understand the argument situation and determine if I have grounds to challenge a grade, whether if it's worth the risk. And of course I shouldn't question my grade before the assignment is handed back. And I shouldn't let my emotions get to me, which is a side note. So first I would have to set up the meeting with the professor and in a friendly manner. You can view this as a negotiation. Before I make my argument, I can ask questions of clarification with the essay itself. Things I shouldn't do. Well, I shouldn't attack my professor if I think the professor is treating me unfairly. Probably gave me a grade for a reason, but I shouldn't attack them on that. I shouldn't be ignorant or use someone else's grade as evidence unless it's unclear. And of course I should be prepared with using the syllabus ahead of time and reviewing it. Other options to resolve this would be to either redo the assignment or ask for extra credit. And if worse comes to worse, I should cry. So lastly, if the professor were to ask me questions, I would think what to say thoroughly and take time to answer the questions, but not too much, just to respond back. This concludes my exam 2.